Welcome, unprofessionals, to episode 48. Jennifer Gonzalez.
Easiest way for you to monetize your podcast. Providing podcasters with a flat rate for ad space so you always know how much you get when you include an ad from Podgo. I recently joined as a member, and you can too. Apply today to become a member and immediately be connected with the advertisers that fit your audience. That's podgo.co at podgo.co.
And please put unprofessional development in the How Did You Hear About Podgo? That will give us a little finder's fee. Thank you.
Hello, unprofessionals. So as you know, now we're doing real commercials, not just the silly ones that we normally do. So today I've got with me my daughter Micah. Say hello, Micah.
Hi.
She has an Etsy account. It's called what?
Roo Makes Bracelets.
Roo Makes Bracelets, okay? We'll put a link in the show notes for you for sure. So she makes some friendship bracelets. She even has one that is kind of an unprofessional bracelet where she's made the unpro letters in the bracelet. So if you need a bracelet, go to Roo's Bracelets. Anything else you want to say about your bracelets?
No.
Okay. Well, she's a little kid. She's 11 years old. She's entrepreneuring. You know, support her. And go to Roo's Bracelets. Click the link in the show notes. Thank you. Say goodbye, Micah.
Bye.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to an exciting episode of Unprofessional Development. I'm Tudisco.
And I'm Mealey, and today we have with us Jen Gonzalez, who I was just talking to about. I refer to you as the godmother of edu podcasters, so I don't know if you know that or not. But she's been podcasting since, what was the first episode? What year did you release the first episode?
I think 2013. That was when I started the website. And I think I recorded maybe 2 episodes in 2013. They were very spaced apart at first.
Yes. And no one and in 2013, only maybe 10% of America even knew what a podcast was at that point.
No kidding, right? Yeah.
So, but I found you I think maybe 4 or 5 years ago, started listening, and then, we obviously decided we wanted to be you. So, we had our own podcast, but, we just want to kind of start off. So to talk to us about those early years and how, first give us a little bit of your little education bio and how you went from becoming a teacher to deciding to, start a podcast, and kind of even were you really into podcasts when you started it, or how did that happen?
Okay. So I was a middle school English teacher for 7.5 years. I did some time in D.C. outside of D.C. in Maryland. Mm-hmm. And then I did some time here in Bowling Green, Kentucky, where I live now. And then I had a bunch of babies, so I left teaching for a little bit. And that was supposed to just be a 5-year break or something like that. During that time, I got hired at the local university here to teach undergrads in the teacher preparation program because I've got my national boards, and they were hiring teachers on the basis of that. It wasn't you didn't have to have a PhD. So I was like, I would love to do that.
Cool.
So I did that part-time for 4 years. And then I was really starting to look at PhD programs, doing it for serious, but it was going to be way too intensive. And at the time, I just happened to need to get 6 credits to keep my teaching certification. Mm-hmm. So I decided to get them in ed tech, which I really knew nothing about. But I thought, let me just do this so I can know a little bit about it. And in that course, in the 2 courses that I took, we had to submit our assignments through a WordPress blog.
Ah, okay.
So I had to learn how to do that. And I was the student in the group who went above and beyond for every assignment. I was making sure that I had nice graphics for every post. And then I would look at my classmates, and they were kind of phoning it in for the most part because it was just a class.
Yeah, they were let me see what the rubric says and what's going to get me through. Right.
And I was really, really into it. And I was like, I think this is telling me something. And so they also the school ran dry for me for teaching assignments. The enrollment started to go down. And I was like, all right, I either need to take the PhD path and do this in academia, or maybe I can do what I'm doing, on a small scale for 19 students per semester on a bigger scale through the internet. So I just decided I would start to take my teaching tips basically that I was giving my undergrads and like start turning it into something that was wire. I also learned at that time how to do screencast videos, which I really, once I learned that technology, I was like, oh, there's so many possibilities for what you could do with this. So I just really got the technology bug. And so, and then, I started just writing a couple of blog posts, and then I realized I wanted to talk to some people.
There you go.
So I did my first few interviews. If anybody were to go back to the first few podcasts, they're like anonymous. They're like, I don't give the last name of the person. I don't say where they are, because I'm trying to get like the real dirt on how they felt about their jobs. Yeah. And these are all people that I could meet with physically who sort of live nearby. And so that's one of the reasons why the episodes are so far apart, because I was like, I didn't understand how to do remote interviewing. And I also didn't understand the concept of a solo podcast. Yes. So I had to basically wait until I could find somebody who could sit down with me, like in my living room, and do an interview. And
it was willing to do that. So when we started roughly a year ago, that was the other thing. We were like, we would let people know they could be anonymous as well, because sadly we work in one of the professions where you feel like if you just say the least off thing, that like you could be fired. Like I don't think that many people are fired, but there's this just looming thing that always is in education. That's like, oh, did you realize that yes, you said this thing to this one kid or this one teacher one time?
It's crazy. and the thing was, I wanted to talk about the types of things that people would probably get fired about. They were talking about like colleagues that really messed them up, or like an administrative policy that they thought was so it was like, it was going to be stuff anyway, but you're right. It could be something way, way more mild, and it could still get them into trouble. So absolutely. So once I started to realize, oh, I can interview people, which my first distance interview, I did it over Skype, and I just put my microphone by the speaker. And so it sounds like total crap. It might've been Jose Vilson. It sounds so bad. So then I started to figure those things out. And then I also started to understand, like, I can just like write a blog post and then read it, and that can be a podcast episode. I started understanding the idea that some people like to consume their content through audio, and other people prefer to have it written. So I was like, I can just do one thing, have it come out in two different ways, and then, you get both audiences. Yeah. So the episodes and everything started to crank out a lot faster after that, once I started to understand that. And now I don't really produce any blog content that isn't also going to be something on the podcast. If someone writes a guest post for me, they're going to be a guest on the podcast, and we're going to talk about whatever they wrote about. So that, when I first started it, I didn't understand how to make a living from it. Yeah. I thought it was just going to be, I thought I would run Google ads on my website and basically earn a living that way. And I didn't like them, and people would write to me and be like, this porn thing came up. And I'm like, okay, never mind. Oof. And also check your cookies. But, But, and I don't like the look of ads anyway. So I started to understand how I could do other things. Like I started creating classroom resources and selling those on Teachers Pay Teachers. And then I have a couple of online courses. And then I started getting asked to do professional development. And so I started to learn how to basically monetize what I do, so I could do it as a full-time job. And so I never ended up going back to the classroom, because I figured that out. I figured out how to do that. And I will occasionally get heat from people saying, like, how dare you tell anybody anything about the classroom? You haven't been in the classroom now in how many years? And, I say to them, if I went back to the classroom, I'd have to stop doing this. So I'm choosing to do this because I was an English teacher. It was all consuming all the time. And so I want to keep doing this. Like, I know so much more about teaching now than I did when I was a teacher, because I'm actually able to go deep on stuff and learn. And when you're teaching, you're just constantly going, which I still feel deeply for teachers that are in the classroom. And so what I try to do now is do that deep work for them, so that I can say, look, I read the book. Here are the cliff notes. Here's what you really need to know. Here's what you can take to the classroom and apply tomorrow. That's going to make a difference. I was going to say, I think one of your strengths when I see your stuff is you're
ability to encapsulate stuff and to just see, okay, what are the bullet points of this topic or of this thing right there, and just to kind of pull it out and go, okay, here's the things that are going to do. And I know probably part of that is also a little bit of like the marketing strategy, because we all love like 6 things to blah 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 and you know and the 8 best ways that, but you really
number 3 will shock you.
Right. Number 3 will shock you. Well, and that's the thing is like, I think there are snarky ways of saying that and non-snarky ways. Like you could say that, oh, I try to spin things to get more clicks, but if my ultimate goal, because I've got 3 kids in school, if my ultimate goal really is for my own kids' teachers to somehow get this, then I need to make sure that as many teachers get their eyes on this stuff as possible. Exactly. And, one of the things I try to do is like, I'll interview somebody who wrote a book and I'll say to that person, hey, we'd love if we could sell more books for you. But if we can give them something from your book that they could actually apply now without even having to read the book, even better, something just for free. And then if they really want to go deep, they can go and get your book and learn even more. But I want there to be something in every episode and every blog post or whatever that a teacher could be like, that I'm going to try that and see if it works.
Right. I think this is a good time for us to mention the title of her podcast.
Oh, yes.
Yes. It is the Cult of Pedagogy.
Yes.
The Cult of Pedagogy.
Cult of Pedagogy. Yes.
I love that title.
Yes, and
Thank
kind of
you.
Actually, I know that you got it from are familiar with Living Color, the
Living
band,
Color,
and the Cult of
Personality.
Yeah.
So, and I personally, if we weren't too busy tailgating outside the Rolling Stones concert on the Steel Wheels tour, I would have seen Living Color live, but
that would have been cool.
But
wow.
We walked in a little too late to see them. But that was 1989.
Yeah.
But
what year did you graduate high school?
I graduated in 87.
Oh, I was 88.
Okay.
Sweet.
And where? And I think you said you went like a Penn State fan. Where in Pennsylvania exactly are you from?
Well, I'm not. I went to Penn State.
Okay.
But I'm a military brat.
Ah, okay.
So I went to high school in Germany, but my parents are from New Jersey.
Okay.
So Penn State was in the general area, and I had always been aware of Penn State. It's just this big, fun football party school. So, but are you the one that went to IUP?
I went to IUP. Yes, I did.
I heard that on your thing, and I was like, I only hear about IUP because like people I went to school with at Penn State like dated people at IUP or something like that, or their sister went to IUP
kind of
or
like
something.
The people that. Like I didn't do great in school. I didn't do my homework, and so I couldn't quite get into Penn State. So IUP was kind of like the next tier down.
Yeah.
So every state has that like main big school everyone wants to go to, and then that kind of like the next one down. And IUP is not a bad school, but it's kind of like the next one down. Yeah,
a lot of teachers. I mean, there's a lot of
teachers,
strong education program there. Yeah,
and nurses. Yeah, and I lived in Seaside Heights, New Jersey, though, for a while as well. I don't know where New Jersey you're from, but when I saw the Rolling Stones, I was actually living in Seaside Heights, New Jersey, which is home of the Jersey Shore TV show.
Oh, wow. That's a claim to fame.
Hey, a lot of those schmucks come from Long Island, okay? You can't claim all that failure for yourself.
Long Island. Yes.
Long Island.
Yes.
My family's from the sort of like Morristown, Passaic, like Patterson, Little Falls, Wayne area.
Okay.
And I know it only mostly because like that's where my relatives are from, but I never actually grew up there. So I say all those names hoping that people will get it.
Okay.
So, and Tudisco, I've got to say this. I got to get credit for this. You spent time in North Kakalaki. Right?
Yes, we both live in North Kakalaki now.
We both live there. Yeah.
You do? Oh, okay.
Yes.
I will never get that out of my head.
Yeah. Have you not heard that before?
No, I just heard it on your podcast. I thought it was horrible.
Okay. Yeah, if you live here, it's North Kakalaki and South Kakalaki is legit a thing.
I've also heard Crackalacka, so I think it just depends on the accent.
Yeah. At some point, I'm sure it gets mutated at certain points. But so I'm still kind of curious going back to this journey where so you're just getting some people that you know in the neighborhood basically and kind of writing a blog. Were there things that you can pinpoint and go, okay, here's my first big break, or here's the thing I did that allowed me to to do this? Or was it speaking at a conference, or how did you get to speak at the conference? So
like, how did I grow the site?
How did you go from like, because there's
what was the springboard, I guess?
There you go, the springboard. Oh, okay.
I can sort of point to a few key moments that I think made a difference. I know that in 2014, I spent a lot of time guest posting. I was very strategic about guest posting on websites that I knew were very generous about giving back to the guest poster, to sort of linking back to your site and to your social media. Because some places you'll guest post for them and they're just like, written by guest. And I'm like,
Yeah.
and I would bust my tail on these posts to make sure that they were epic, epic, epic. So I did one for Edutopia that had a little video, and that thing went nuts. So that gave me a boost. And then I did one for Middle Web, same thing. And I just did it in a few places.
Mm-hmm.
But really, one of the earliest things that got me the most traffic was a stupid post I did on punctuation, on how when you hit period, you're supposed to just hit one space after, but all of us of a certain age hit two spaces. So the post is called "Nothing Says Over 40 Like Two Spaces After a Period."
Wow.
And I basically just wrote it to mock people who still do it and to say, hey, old folks, fellow old folks, like, we need to stop doing this. And here's why. And I explained the reason. And people got so bent out of shape about it that I got tons and tons of like hate traffic to my website. And it wasn't even a post about teaching. But for like 2 years, that was my number one post. And I was just like,
at least you didn't touch my Oxford comma. All right.
I know. A lot of people said that in the comments. They were like, okay, fine, but no Oxford comma. But that was a very weird thing. But like, honestly, when I was first getting started and I remember reading, you'd read stuff about like how to get more people to your website. And the one piece of advice that I remember really stuck out, and I follow it and I still give it to this day. This one blogger said, write epic, SHIT. He said, just write really good stuff consistently.
Right. Have quality content. And eventually
that is going, that is going to eventually, Yeah. So you do that for 7 years and you
I was going to say, I listened to a podcast called Reply All. I don't know if you know that one or not, but it's a really good one. But it's not a teacher podcast. It's like more technology, and I don't random tangents, but they said there's really two things. They said, have really good content and, for lack of a better term, put a lot of it out there, because it's like buying lots of lottery tickets. Like there's a lot of people that we know, like I've listened to podcasts where they do not have a ton of listeners, but it's good stuff. And I'm sure you know some bloggers who have guest blogged on yours or whatever. And it's like, okay, this person is writing something as good as I am. And, but for whatever reason, like, it's just not, it doesn't click. And so I think that there's both that, when it, just like bands, just like writers, it's like there's people who are doing something really good, and they also happen to be in the right place at the right time. So it's a combo of those things, I truly believe. So so we like funny stories here. And I know you've shared this, and obviously both in the blog and the thing. And so we always have funny stories. So, we're going to, talk about the time that you made, a noise in your classroom, and we're kind of like but I really think there's some actual good pedagogy, associated with that. So kind of like, just kind of tell that story in like the little Reader's Digest version.
Okay. Yes. So this is a story. I used to share this with my own children for years, and I finally decided last year to turn it into a blog post. So this is when I was teaching in Maryland. This is in Silver Spring, Maryland. And this was a class of 7th graders. It was a GT class, a gifted and talented English class. So these were mostly very like rule following, super hardworking, grade driven, serious kids. We were reading thick novels and writing long papers, and, they always worked really hard. And
wow.
Like if you go to the Grand Canyon or something, you're looking over the edge and you're just like, oh my gosh, it would just take one step and I would just be like, there's just this guardrail here. And you realize like you've got stuff in you that just holds you back from doing like crazy stuff like that. So one day we're sitting there, and I had just given them a test of some sort, and they're all sitting there in their desks, and I can see they're all furrowing their brows and they're all writing, and the room was so quiet. And I just got a wild hair. And so I'm just sitting there, and all of a sudden I just went just with my mouth like that. And they just, all 30 heads just went boom. And they looked up at me like, what did you just do? And I just was like, there was a dead silence for about 2 seconds while they processed what the heck just happened. And then they all just died laughing.
Nice.
And then they start asking me like, why did you do that? I'm like, I don't know. I just couldn't help it. I just wanted to see what would happen.
Nice.
The exhaustion, the seriousness, and the sleep deprivation hit at the same time.
There we go.
And the thing is, like, we never, like, they were doing so great. Everybody was I was never able to get them back that class period. Like,
No.
Every few minutes, we'd finally be like, come on, okay, you guys have got to finish your test now. Let's stop. And we'd finally settle down. And then one person would be like, and we all start laughing. But it was so funny. And so when I started to actually write the story out, I sort of tied it in with this completely different story. And this is about one of the women who taught me how to become a teacher at Penn State. Her name was Deborah Schmidt. She was I just worshiped her. She was so cool. She had taken a 2-year break from teaching in Manhattan at Stuyvesant High School just to come out to Penn State to teach us for 2 years. So she was just chic and like funny, and she like cussed all the time. And I was just like, I love her. And I looked her up online, and God, this has happened to me now like 3 times where I look somebody up. I wonder whatever happened to them. And I find her obituary.
Oh,
and she's, she had committed suicide.
Oh my
Like
goodness.
she had just taken a bunch of pills and walked into a river behind her house. And I was like, oh my God. Yeah. It was so shocking. And it was sort of like, to me, she represented that way that you could make teaching into this like really incredible experience with other people and not just delivering content. And so it sort of reminded me of the importance of just connecting with these other human beings in the classroom. Yes. As opposed to just like, we got to get through this. We got to get through this. Right. Like by making that stupid noise that day, like all of those kids in that class remember that.
Of course they do.
Oh yeah.
And they're all like in their 30s now.
Your relationship with them is completely different, I'm guessing, at that point, right? I'm
yeah. You know what I mean? In some ways, they never respected me in the same way. Yeah. But in other ways, it was a bonding moment. Yeah.
It's a human moment. Like
Yes.
And how important that is for kids.
Especially that type of kid too. They take themselves so seriously, and they were only like 13 years old. And it was just, I just want, I think part of me, looked back on it and said, I showed them that you don't always have to be just goal driven all the time. Yes.
Somebody pointed out to me, like, I think it was one of my college professors. They were talking about how, think of like a teacher who really made a difference, to you, it really made a difference to your life. And they're like, can you imagine any unit that they taught? Like, can you remember a handout? Right. Can you remember a lesson? No, you just remember how they treated you. Right. And that's all you remember. And that's all you care about. Right. Especially as a teenager.
Yes. And how
because they're pulling away from their parents. And so to have another adult to just bond with a little bit is huge.
Exactly. And I mean, and how it feels in that classroom then when they walk in the next day, they're like, okay, it's okay to like be myself here. I don't have to, do all this kind of stuff. And it definitely is. I might or may not have shared this with, on the podcast before or not, but it kind of reminds me of this kid. So, I had this kid, stop me if I've done this before to this kid. The kid who was reading War and Peace. Did I talk about him before?
Yeah, but talk about him again.
Okay, I'll talk about him.
Yeah, because I haven't heard it. Yeah.
So this kid, I had him in, it was a 10th grade course, but he was taking it as a 9th grader, of course. And, he was reading War and Peace. So, but I teach math, but he would finish his stuff so quickly, and then he'd just get out his War and Peace book. And I'm like, you're reading War and Peace. Like, I don't think anyone in this school is teaching War and Peace. Like, that's not a high school book. You can't get kids to read War and Peace. He's like, well, I know that this is a book that smart people read, and I want to have, like, he basically wanted to check that box so that when he could talk to other smart people, which he was really smart people, that he was familiar with War and Peace.
That's why I read Moby Dick.
Right.
Exactly.
There's a lot of people do that.
Right? I mean, the war was cool, but the peace was iffy.
Yes. So then I saw him in another teacher's class 2 years later. And I said, "Oh, you have George." And he is just so awesome. I said, because he really was. He was a good kid. He had a good sense of humor. All these things. I really liked him as a person. And she goes, "I need to tell you about this essay he wrote." Oh, that gets me all like worked up. He said, and it's basically his essay. His essay said, "At the end of my junior year, I realized something. I realized I wasn't having the high school experience. I was chasing a GPA, and I was trying to become valedictorian, and I worked my fingers to the bone on all of these things, on these projects for this class, and taking these classes and doing all these things." And he goes, 5, 10, 20 years from now, I want to have gone to a party and sat around with my friends and eat pizza and watch movies and, cut up as we do this and all this kind of stuff. And he's like, "So I don't care if I get B's, I don't care if I don't have the highest grade in the class. I'm going to put that aside now and do this." And I'm like, wow,
that's amazing.
That's, and it's just beautiful. I get goosebumps just thinking about it. It's
I think the moral of that story is that War and Peace destroys people's efforts.
If this is what it means to be a smart person, I don't want to be smart anymore.
Right. Russian literature demoralizes everyone.
There is, there is good stuff to learn, and there is good content, but we also have to realize, and that's sometimes, and I know this is part of, it's where your heart is as well, and that's why we want to have you on the podcast, is it's about having the kids having a good learning experience, and it's nice to do all these different things, and we want them to learn the content. There's value in the content, but there's so much more value in just having an experience and relationships inside the classroom that learning is a part of, as opposed to the be all and end all. And
it really is such a privilege that we have that people trust us to be in a room with a bunch of kids every day. I mean, we spend more time with them than their families do sometimes. And what a wasted opportunity to make it only about the content, when not only can we be relating to them, but we can, give them opportunities to just talk to each other and get to know each other and have those experiences.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. It's really powerful. I tell my kids all the time, it's an honor and a privilege. And I tell them all the time, I said, "You're going to give me 90 hours of your time, or 180 hours of your time." I said, "The fact that I get to do that for a teenager who's going to go out," I said, I really am really thankful for that. And when I send emails to parents before I say everything else, I said, "Just thank you for letting me be an influence on your child's life, because you have a wonderful kid, and I'm so glad to know them in my class."
They can grow up and be a super successful billionaire and hopefully remember me when they're handing out Mercedes Benzes.
Right. Which is what millionaires do all the time.
That's my fight. I've seen Oprah.
I know. You get a car.
Because I've had conversations with parents as well. I'm like, guess what? Your kid, because their kid's struggling in the class. I'm like, they're going to be a good spouse. They're going to be a good neighbor. They're going to be a good employee. And 10 years from now, whether they get a B or a C or a D or an A in my class is not going to be anything. Not going to matter at all. So let's just relax. Let's help them be as successful as they can. But but as successful as they can as a C, then that's cool. If it's a B, then it's cool. And I'm not really worried about it. So
And now for a word from our sponsors.
Hey guys, this is an advertisement. A commercial if you want to know what it is.
And they do.
So this is especially for you folks in North Kakalaki and South Kakalaki. You have a house, you have a car, you have life. What do you need? You need insurance. You go, you know what? If I could buy my insurance from a former teacher, that's what I'd like to do. Hey, Tudisco, do you know anyone that has a business selling insurance who used to be a teacher?
I do, and I think you do too. Pimentel?
Yeah, he used to teach with us, but he doesn't anymore. And apparently there's some guy Garcia that he knows. So they've got insurance. You need insurance. There's a link in the show notes.
We're all kind of looking at bottom line. We're looking at what's going to help us, what's going to be easiest. Check it out. Talk to them. Get a quote, and they will help you out.
And it's at Pimentel, Pimentel, Garcia, theCult.com. So you can email them that info. You can go to the website, or you can call 704-272-3535. It's all listed in the show notes. Swipe down and click, baby, you're there. And then get your insurance from a teacher, not from some weird lizard or from some ball guy who says ba-ba-da-ba-da-ba-da-da-da. No, you don't want that. You want it from a teacher. That's where you want your insurance.
When you call up Pimentel Garcia Insurance, make sure you tell them you heard it from us. And now, back to the show.
So we want to play this game that we like to play, okay? And so it's called Admin Colleague Student. And so you're probably familiar with the game of kill, marry, have relations with, okay? And so this is
Admin Colleague Student.
Okay, so it's the same thing, and we're going to give you 3 people, and you have to pick, is this someone that you want to be your
administrator, colleague, or your student?
Or your student. And so
this is a brilliant idea. Okay.
Yeah, so I will start off with The Office, because you said you're a fan of The Office. I'm going to give you Pam, Kevin, and Stanley.
Oh, goodness. Okay. I would want, oh my gosh, that's so good. This is tough because I feel like Pam would be good as an administrator, but she might be kind of a pain too. She might be like, you're supposed to do, but I also wouldn't have to worry about her dropping the ball or anything. So I think I would want Pam as my admin.
Solid.
I think I would want Stanley as my colleague because just all those dry, sarcastic remarks would be hilarious. And plus, he would always just be wanting to like leave early and stuff. So he wouldn't really get in my way anyway. And boy, I guess Kevin would have to be my student.
You need a lot of love.
Yes.
What would you do when he spills the chili all over the floor?
I keep picturing is that stuff. Oh my gosh.
Yes.
I would need to assign him a buddy right away to just always
But the thing is, saying to you, do you think I'm an EC student?
But the thing about it is too, like, if he was the teacher next door, it'd be so much more work for you. He'd just have to be your student.
I know. Then I have some control over him.
Oh my goodness.
Okay. Do we have another one?
Oh yeah, we got a couple more. Yeah.
Okay, good.
So, we'll go music here, and then Tudisco's going to do the Game of Thrones one. So you've got Prince, John Bon Jovi, and Axl Rose.
Oh my gosh! Oh, because I said I like '80s metal band. Okay.
Yes, you did.
Prince, John Bon Jovi, and Axl Rose. Oh gosh. I think I would want Prince to be my colleague just because I get to hang out with him the most. Maybe I would want Axl. Well, gosh, that's tough. Because that does leave the other two.
Yeah.
Let's make John Bon Jovi my admin.
Okay.
Be easy on the eyes.
Okay.
And I wasn't bad with the rougher student, so let's make Axl Rose my student. Yes, I feel like I could reach him.
I think he's a student I would enjoy having in class. Like, he seems like the kind of kid who would crack you up.
Yes.
On the days he would show up.
Right, exactly. Yes. No, I'm picturing him in the back of the room, just like,
Yes.
But yeah, I did all right with that type of kid. So.
Okay.
I like those students.
Okay. So, and I don't watch Game of Thrones, and Tudisco does, so I'll be completely out of the loop. But go ahead, Tudisco, with these.
All right, all right. You ready? Mm-hmm. I got two. I got boys and I got girls, and you can go. We can do both of them if you have time.
Okay. Yes, I do.
Okay, cool. All right. So here's gonna be the first one: Cersei, Daenerys, and Arya.
Oh, Arya. Okay. I want Arya as my colleague. I want that girl on my side, right next to me. I want, this is actually easy. I want Daenerys as my admin. I want her in charge. And I want Cersei as my student. For sure.
She would be in charge of every event in your class.
I don't know. I mean, I'd have to watch her all the time. But I wouldn't mind being in control of Cersei in a way and sort of like guiding her and trying to figure out what is her internal pain here and how can we like keep her away from her brother. And
so let's unpack there.
Yes, I know, right?
She would definitely do a lot of cyberbullying.
It'd be interesting to read her journal. She would do a lot of cyberbullying. You're right. Okay, who are the guys?
All right, you ready?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Littlefinger, Jon Snow, and Jaime Lannister.
Okay. Jon Snow, I would want to be my admin.
Yeah?
I think he's a good leader. This is interesting because this is almost similar. I would want Jaime Lannister to be my colleague, and I would want Littlefinger as my student. Again,
You
I would
picked
never
the
want
toughest students.
because in any other plane they can mess with me. I feel like my strength as a teacher was relationship building and building trust with my students. So even the students who gave other teachers a hard time, they didn't tend to give me as hard of a time because I liked them. And so their defenses would drop a little bit. I would never want Littlefinger running the show in any way. And I certainly wouldn't want him down the hall, forming alliances with other people to, no. I want Littlefinger on whatever the possible lowest rung of that school is as possible. So the more rules that we place on Littlefinger, the better.
Nice.
Mealey, do you want a moment to Google who any of those people are?
No, I just at some point maybe I'll get around to watching it when
It'd only take up like 3 years of your life.
I was just going to say, how long would that take? That's what you should have used all this quarantining for.
Yeah. Well, I know there's I just peripherally know that there's debates about I guess with a lot of shows about the ending or the last season or something like that or whatever. So
we don't have time. We don't have time.
That's a whole other podcast. Yeah. Okay.
Mealey, you are a genius for thinking up this game.
Yeah. Oh,
it's a good game. Yeah, I like it.
And feel free, Jen, we said all our guests that we play this with, it is our gift to you. You feel free to play this game whenever you're in some kind of setting where it makes sense. And the possibilities are endless, obviously.
This should be the icebreaker of an actual professional development. That's what it should be.
Gosh, yeah. No, that's actually a great idea.
Yes.
How fun.
It's a lot of fun. So, we just want to say thank you again for being on the podcast. Like I said, I'm a huge fan. I'm just so glad you took time and did this. And so guys, please listen to Cult of Pedagogy. Please follow her on Twitter. And are you on Instagram? I don't know.
I just closed my Instagram account because I was not using it very well.
Yeah, I don't know how to Instagram.
A very small little personal one now.
Yeah,
but your blog does have Pinterest, right?
It does. Yes.
Yeah.
I've got Pinterest and Facebook and Twitter. Instagram was the one that I dropped for the professional side.
Yeah.
Have you ever written a book? Do you have a book or not yet?
I started working on one at the beginning of before COVID hit, and then I had to shift everything around. I wrote a book with Mark Barnes, who runs the whole Hack Learning series.
Okay.
I don't know if you've ever seen any of those books, but he and I wrote the flagship book for that whole series together. So I don't really count it because it's co-written and it's not just mine. But before I retire, there will be a book out there called the Cult of Pedagogy Manual that is going to be just my one shot at a book. It's going to be sort of like, here's everything you need to know about becoming a great, great teacher.
Awesome.
That sounds awesome.
Put it in a giant tome, basically.
if it's anything like your blog, it's going to be great. I love your blog.
Oh, thank you.
Yes.
Thank you.
It's fantastic.
Yes. Yeah.
So
just
really
thanks again. And we always say at the end, stay unprofessional.
Thanks for listening, Unprofessionals. For more information about our guest, please check out our show notes.